Hello, I'm Max.
And I am Dan.
And you're listening to Jazz Lasagna's Fightography. Of course, coming up is probably going to be one of the films of the year, if not the film of the year, The Batman. Which means, of course, there is no better time to cover Robert Pattinson and all his glorious, iconic roles and his indie roles within film over the last, 14 years?
Our bats, batting bats. The people's Batman.
Our bats.
Our bats, batting bats.
Yes. What's your opinion of Robert Pattinson?
Ooh. I think he's really good. Obviously, back in the day it was cool to hate on him because of Twilight, but he's very clearly tried to put distance between himself and that. I think even during the press junkets for that film, he was openly criticising it and saying, yeah, this is not good, but money. Which is fair enough as an actor. And yeah, he's done a lot of good work to put some distance between himself and that, he's done quite a lot of indie films which are all very good. He's done some more big releases recently which are all pretty decent. Well, his performances are at least. Things like Tenet are debatable, but
I was going to say
I watched The Lighthouse for the first time the last week.
No, did you?
I did, and it is. Cool. Well, I'm sure I'll get to it at some point later on, but yeah, fantastic film. And yeah, when I heard he was Batman, I was like, good pick. I can see him doing the sort of cold, distant Bruce Wayne. I think you said as well that he's quite a cold actor normally, which
it's interesting. And I heard this point actually when someone was talking about Christian Bale, ironically, and it's not like a sort of it's not like a kind of diss or anything, but it's sort of like I feel there are certain actors where you don't really find them. I don't really know how else to explain it, but you don't really find them like warm. I mean, a lot of the time it's probably because of the characters they play, but they don't really play characters, or you don't really like feel emotional for them. You don't like kind of have that real care over them. They're quite kind of cold. You're sort of quite separate from that character. You kind of find it hard to sort of maybe not root for the character, but this, I don't know, it's this idea that there's some sort of level of distance between you and the characters. And I think Christian Bale is a good example because he's probably one of the best actors working, maybe. Yeah, I'd say. And it's just you don't feel sorry for Patrick Bateman in American Psycho. You don't really get much time to feel sorry for Bruce Wayne when he's Batman. There are characters who are like kind of quite cold in that regard and quite I don't know. You sort of struggle to sort of have that relationship, and you struggle to relate with them. But they're still very good nonetheless. Yeah. And compelling actors. And I think it does sort of work for Batman occasionally.
I think with Christian Bale, his Batman in particular, he wasn't really given much in the way of sympathetic material to play. Like the most he gets is Batman Begins. And it's a shame because, Bruce Wayne, in the films like Mask of the Phantasm, he's got a lot of interesting psychology you can really delve into and really sort of explore this sort of tortured, self-torturing man. Really, he puts himself through stuff because he blames himself for his parents' death and all that. It's a really juicy stuff, which I think Arpats is gonna nail because he very much has a way of playing these sort of tortured weirdos. He seems to have a very good niche for that, which fits Bruce perfectly. He's got a great jawline for it, like more of a surface level thing.
He does.
Like he's got a proper.
He does.
Yeah.
It's quite interesting, but when I came to make this list, because there are 8 Robert Pattinson characters, I did have to watch about 3 or 4 films, and I don't know, it just sort of occurred to me that I actually hadn't seen many of the films that he's in. It's weird because he's quite famous, and yet at the same time I haven't really seen him in a lot. So this week was really interesting for me to sort of learn about him and to really sort of get my take on how I view him as an actor. And I guess I don't know. It's just oh god, I've lost my train of thought. Don't worry.
Have your opinions been changed on Mr. Batman over the past weeks or watching his films?
Well, this like I'm at a sort of like kind of really kind of strange crossroads where I've sort of like I think he's a good actor, but I've yet to find the performance where I'm like, oh my god, he's amazing. He's amazing, darling. He needs 7 Oscars immediately. I think he's very good, and I think he's always been sort of hard done by.
Yeah.
Anyway, shall we get into it?
I think we shall, yes. Let us dive right in.
Cool, let's go. So, film number 1 for Robert Pattinson, a first for Fightography, is a film that none of us have seen. The Batman.
I mean, we haven't actually seen Super Pets, to be fair, for Dwayne Johnson.
Oh, yeah. Black Adam. Actually, yeah, no, there are several examples. But Robert is playing Batman in The Batman. What do we... Right, we've got to... Because at time of recording, The Batman is yet to be released. But this will be released after it is. So some people may have already seen it by now. We may have already seen it by the time this goes up. So...
like, it's premiere night tonight, I think. Like, as in the sort of press premiere. And then... like, its official release is Friday, which is when this episode should be going up. So it's very coordinated.
What are our thoughts on, I guess, the trailers in as spoiler-free as a way as possible?
I mean, given we haven't seen the film, I guess that we can't really spoil anything. Because I don't think there's much really given away.
No, but I fully predict that... Yeah, I don't know, because this is a film I'm really excited for, and I fully predict you're going to be like, oh, the reviews are amazing, they say Riddler's so fucking good, and I don't want to know if it's good or not. I don't care about reviews. I don't want anything. I want no knowledge. I've seen 1.5 trailers, and that's it. I don't want any clips that they've released. They've released all these clips. They've released all these other trailers. They've released all these press bits.
Yeah, they have released...
The only thing they haven't released is the fucking film.
They have released, like, a lot of, clips instantly in the past couple of weeks, which I've been avoiding, because, I don't want to see much of the actual film outside of a trailer.
This is the thing. I'm slowly learning that to just avoid as much as possible.
Yeah.
Which is really difficult this day and age when you're scrolling through social media and the minute everyone's been talking about the reviews lately. And I think it's interesting, and I'm surprised nobody's learned that essentially the reviews for every... Like, the first couple of reviews for more or less every film with a big fan base are going to be good. Because the most excited people are going to watch it.
Yeah.
I think it's much more interesting to get the opinions of somebody who's a little bit more neutral towards the franchise. Because it's sort of like when No Way Home came out, everyone's like, the first reviews were like, oh my god, this is the best film ever made.
And they were correct.
And as fun a film as that, I don't know, it's just this thing where it's like, well, of course the reviews are going to be good.
Yeah.
The first reviews for Multiverse of Madness are going to be good. I think the first reviews for Zack Snyder's Justice League, which we didn't really enjoy as much,
were
probably good. You know, it sort of makes sense that the first people to see it are going to be the biggest fans, and therefore they're sort of, no matter what happens, they're going to think it's amazing. Now, saying all this...
Yeah, I have seen quite a few of the reviews. No spoilers in them, but, well, not by my standards at least, but yeah, they are fairly unanimous, and it's not bad. Not as in saying the reviews are saying it's not bad, but I don't want to give too much on what they're saying about it, but they're unanimous and they're positive. I think that's as
Well,
spoiler
here's
free as
my
I can
interesting
get.
thing. I've seen. Well, I got one opinion from somebody I listened to who got to see a screening of it, and they said that one person thought it was good, one person either didn't enjoy it or thought it was okay. And I think there's a weird. I have this very strange logic that I'm sort of more reassured that somebody doesn't like it. That makes me more assured that it's going to be good, because I'm trying to work out my own sort of weird logic, because I feel if every single person goes, oh my god, this is the better thing than the best thing since The Godfather, I'm just sort of like, well, all those opinions, no matter, oh god, I had so many for No Way Home, which was like, this is, changing cinema, and cool, but it just, because everyone was so, for lack of a better word, over the top about it, it made me very skeptical of really how legitimate those claims are. So the fact that someone's like, I'm not too sure about it, gives me confidence that the film's going to be a little bit unique, it's going to be a little bit divisive, it's going to maybe try new things, it's going to shoot things in a different way. Because also you've got to remember, the films that are going to get the most likes immediately are the films that are sort of going to be a little bit safe as well.
There's certainly been a dissenting factor in the reviews, for want of a better phrase, but the way they review it, I don't want to invalidate their opinion, but it sounds like it's not a film that they were wanting or expecting to see, because a lot of them are like, come on, this isn't for kids, this isn't a very child friendly Batman. And I'm like, well, yeah, but you can tell that from the trailer. So but I have no issues with Batman being child friendly, because he was originally a comics character for children, so I don't need Batman to be an exclusively adult character.
No.
But from the trailers, it was pretty clear that this was not a sort of family-friendly Batman. This was sort of darker interpretation. So to go into
it, Batman's sort of good because you can sort of do either or. But for us, for a bunch of 20-year-olds, we as viewers, our preferred style, I imagine, is going to be really gritty, really kind of dark, really sort of rich, thematic, whilst also being awesome and looking awesome. Yeah,
I like it to sort of, really delve into Bruce's tortured psyche, which is what I want in a Batman. It needs to be sort of darker and sort of a bit grittier. So
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I've seen one. I don't want to say anything regarding the contents of it, but I've seen one review which will make you very happy. So
good. Well, my take is, and I've mentioned to everyone in the group chat a lot of times, my dream is just Silence of the Lambs meets The Dark Knight, and that would be Max's dream Batman film. And I actually sort of want to do a mild thesis on sort of how all the characters in Silence of the Lambs are essentially just Batman characters. With Clarice being the tortured soul with noble parents who died, who was traumatized by a young animal when she was a child, and since then has vowed to sort of change the world. Her arch nemesis being sort of a madman, but also a genius at the same time, who escapes a prison. Spoilers for a 30-year-old film. I feel there are definitely parallels between the Batman.
Goat Woman versus Hannibal. That's my favourite film.
Yeah. Yep. Should we get onto the sort of powers of the Batman, or sort of predict and sort of try and find a gauge of what this Batman's going to be like? Because we've seen a lot of the trailers.
Yeah.
I feel we can try and ascertain as to what we're going to be in for.
I guess
in terms of abilities and how he'd stand in a battle royale.
Yeah. I guess this is a nice segue, because I was just going to sort of say, talking about your sort of ideal Batman, and it sort of leads into this because of how violent we see Bruce be in the trailers.
Yes.
It looked, based on the interviews that Arbats and Matt Reeves have given, and based on the trailers, it looks like they're sort of doing the arc for Batman I sort of have as my dream Batman arc, whether it's in this film or whether it's over this trilogy or whatever remains to be seen. But basically it seems that Bruce is starting as a very violent and unstable Batman, really. He's not quite sure whether or not he's doing it for vengeance or whether he's actually doing it to help people. He is helping people,
vengeance.
but it's unsure whether it comes from, that place of vengeance or genuine empathy, and he's very violent.
Yeah.
And then the arc he goes through is sort of, learning to come to terms as much as Bruce Wayne can with his trauma, and then as a result of that, sort of becoming a more empathetic Batman, and still using violence when he has to, but trying to find other means first, and being Batman more like concretely out of a sense of empathy and wanting to help people rather than the sort of ambiguity around it. That's sort of my ideal Batman arc. And based on how they cited like Mask of the Phantasm and stuff, it seems like that's what they're going for. Which leads us into Powers. He's very clearly, at least for a portion of this film, if not the whole thing,
violent.
That
he doesn't hold back.
I guess spoilers, but he's violent. He doesn't hold back. It's in the first trailer how he literally pulverizes that dude. Probably, in real life he's
double
dead.
taps the fucker.
In real life that guy's got brain damage.
Severely injured. He's severely injured.
As an expert on head injuries, I can tell you that guy, he's fucked.
Well, maybe he didn't hit him in the head. Maybe he hits him in the nuts.
Jesus, that's even worse. That's destroyed his future generations.
Crushes his bollocks. So he's not going to hold back, which is going to be useful in the battle royale. His armor seems very bulletproof as opposed to just sort of generally bulletproof. There's a clip, spoilers, of like a guy just like unleashing like a round of machine gun bullets onto him that just seems to do fuck all.
He just walks through it like a tank. It's just Jesus.
Which is awesome, which is cool, and I'm so hyped for it. So he doesn't hold back. He's pretty much bulletproof. I imagine he's got all the Batman weapons. He's got the grappling hook.
No, he's
I haven't seen him the cape. Probably not the cape.
I think he probably can glide with a cape. I'm sure I've seen a clip in one of the trailers where he does seemingly glide, even if it's only for a brief period. So I think we can grant him the cape. He definitely has the grappling hook. It's a matter of like how many of his more outlandish gadgets do we give this sort of very sort of down to earth looking Batman?
I feel if we haven't seen them in the trailers, we've got to just sort of imagine it isn't so. We can only go off what we've seen. If we're going to use the sort of scientific way of doing this, we can only go off evidence and fact.
No bat skates for our bats. No shark repellent spray.
No Riddler repellent. It'd be funny. Imagine just having like one, like just a repellent for sort of each villain. Oh, it's the Joker. We'll get the Joker repellent.
I mean, I wouldn't put it past God mode Batman, because if you give him enough prep time, then he could defeat God himself, according to a lot of Bat fans. Which I find that less interesting. I like Bruce being hyper competent, but if he's literally able to defeat God, then there's no real threat to him.
Well, yeah, exactly.
I like
this is sort of what I like about the Batman. Like, I get the idea, and I guess maybe this is one reason why the Joker's quite interesting, is sort of like, and I think it will be the same with the Riddler in this film, you've got no doubt that sort of Batman could kick the Riddler's ass, like, quite easily. But it's sort of the way that the Riddler sort of, I imagine, is going to, like, skirt evasion, or is going to evade, evade him, and it's the same with the Joker. The Joker very rarely gets into, like, direct conflict with him.
It's all about mind games and
exactly. It's all about and that's why they're sort of interesting, I guess.
But then you get Bane, who's super interesting because he can do both, which is why he's a
Well,
Although rarely gets that in films. I think Tom Hardy was the only one who actually sort of touched on both sides of Bane. Normally he's either a brute, normally he's just a brute, and then sometimes he's But
so we've got the Batman,
so
bulletproof, super violent, gives no shits.
Now, do we grant him the Batmobile? Because I
was thinking this.
I doubt we'll spend enough of the film in it for our usual vehicle rule. However, Batman and the
But he is
Batmobile, it's like a, it's a thing.
Well, we've sort of made a sort of really kind of flawed, I don't understand the logic of it, rule where they're not allowed to leave their vehicles. And I feel if he's not allowed to leave his vehicle at any point, I reckon it would probably be better he's just by himself.
Yeah, unless we sort of do like a sort of almost Mortal Kombat style thing where he can summon it for like one period, and then as soon as he gets out, it's like destroyed, and that's it. So he's got to think tactically about when to use the Batmobile.
Let's just keep him as he is. Let's say he's infiltrating a building.
Everyone liked the Arkham games until the Batmobile came along, but then they ruined it. So let's just keep the Batmobile out of this.
Okay. Next up on the list, it's going to be Edward Cullen from Twilight. Another vampire character.
Now, this was a film that I was dreading the prospect of having to watch if I had to do Robert Pattinson.
Yep, I watched it.
So, truly a hero.
I watched it. This is like, I think. How do I begin this? I think I've been trying to do this, I guess, sort of kind of like big kind of inner kind of therapy thing for my writing soul, and I've tried to be like very less judgmental on things. I think I understand the importance of criticism, and I'm perfectly willing to criticize a piece of work, but I'm trying to become very self-aware of the boundaries between sort of good criticism and funny criticism and taking the piss out of stuff, and then like getting just into extreme, really harsh, just like negativity.
Yeah,
this film tested me. This film tested this, and the opening 5 minutes, I was sort of like, okay, I was sort of like, oh, okay, I'm into this for like 5 minutes. It's like, there's a tone, there's a style, it's quite dark and gritty. It's about vampires, talking about death.
Dark, gritty, big old air quotes, I imagine.
Essentially, since the first like proper scene happened with dialogue between characters, I checked out.
Oh, Jesus.
It like, this is the thing. I'm trying to write a novel at the minute, and I do appreciate anybody who can sort of write a book, and anybody who can make a film. So I do appreciate the level of work that's gone into this, but it's not good.
I would fully let you have one of your hypercritical rants for this one. I think we can make an exception for Twilight.
The thing is, I think it's already been done before. I think my my rants, I like to use. I'm very passionate about my rants, and I feel any opinion I have about Twilight has sort of already been said 1,000 times. It was million
cool
times even.
Yeah, it was cool back in the day to like hate on Twilight, and it seems there's probably a reason for it.
I would say that. What would I say? That Robert Pattinson, I actually don't think is too bad in this.
Okay.
And I think he was like 23 when this was made, so
wow.
he's developed a lot since then. But also, the dialogue is the dialogue is maybe some of the worst dialogue I've kind of seen in recent films.
Oh, geez.
Where it's sort of like, it's so kind of blocked. It's so sort of basic and blocked. There's sort of no kind of interesting language within the lines. It just sort of, the purpose of the dialogue is to just sort of kind of progress a sort of non-existent plot. So it's just like, hi, how was your day?
Oh, God.
Yes, this is a thing. I am a vampire. Can you forgive me? Like, very kind of basic, very just truncated, blocky dialogue. And I feel if you're watching this film and judging any of the actors, I feel that you've immediately got to give them a break, because the dialogue and the material they're working with is actually, it's not just not very good. It's so poor that I sort of immediately give everyone a pass.
Yeah.
And I can, if Robert Pattinson is bad in this, he's probably bad because the stuff he's working with is quite bad.
Yeah, a sort of passion of mine is like absorbing all of the film reviews and commentaries around like terrible films. I just love to hear people rip them apart. So I've absorbed a fair bit about Twilight. Now, a recurring criticism is that Bella, I believe, I'm pretty sure that's the main character, right? Yeah,
Bella Swan.
Yes, I thought that was
Bella Swan. Take that in.
I couldn't believe that was her actual name. I had to double check myself there. Yeah. But a common complaint is that she is basically a zero personality sort of self-insert.
Actually,
where
this is something
she has to be all things
I was going to bring
people.
up.
Yeah.
This is something I was going to... Also, yeah, if you're like a 16-year-old girl who's like went to see Twilight when they were a kid, I sort of like, cool, I get it. I understand why this might be appealing to you. Actually, I've got a funny story that you must remind me of.
Okay.
But I was sort of like, I was watching it, and Edward Cullen, very attractive. And I was like, when a man is attractive, you've got to be like, okay, he's attractive. And then, so what happens in the film is he's a little bit standoffish from Bella for a while, and then he goes away for a while. And then, like, he comes back and they sit next to each other in science. And, like, he does this thing where he's incredibly handsome, but he's, like, really shy. And he just kind of goes, he sort of, like, looks really, like, sheepishly. And he just kind of goes, hello, like that. And I was like, as a heterosexual man, I was like, ooh. Ooh, he's attractive.
Oh, bad man.
I was sort of like, he was so adorable yet incredibly handsome at the same time. And I was sort of like won over, and I was like, okay, I get it. I get why people really like Edward. But then, like, going back to Bella, I sort of realised very quickly that she has no sort of likeable character traits at all.
Yeah.
And I think the purpose of this is to sort of... She's meant to be sort of, I guess, symbolic, or I can't think of the device.
I think she's meant to be like...
But she's trying to be a representation of the sort of kind of like the, I guess, the loser, nerdy schoolgirl, the unpopular schoolgirl, who's sort of, like a no bit, and she's sort of mildly depressed and sort of talking about death constantly and wanting to, like, alluding to the fact that she's quite miserable.
Yeah.
And she's quite shy. She doesn't really have many interesting thoughts.
I get the impression she's
quite
meant
standoffish.
to be like... I get the impression she's meant to be like a sort of totally blank. Anyone can sort of see themselves in her because she has
Quite
zero
possibly.
like defining traits, and yet somehow she's also quite popular. Like in some scenes, everyone's like, "Oh hi Bella, oh hi Bella, oh hey girl."
Yeah, basically, yeah. But for
Wow.
me in the film, I only saw the first one because I'm not watching all 5.
I think that's fair enough.
And this is probably, I feel like this is the best one of the 5, to be honest. Because you can watch it, and we could probably watch it together, get drunk, and probably have a good time with it. I reckon we could.
I imagine so.
You can have fun from it. But Bella is sort of so kind of... she is sort of very bland. She has no really likeable character traits. And I feel like everyone... I feel that most people, especially the people that she's trying to represent, have likeable character traits.
Yeah.
Even if, she doesn't have, like, agency. A lot of people who, I guess, are, your generic, like, loser high school girl or whatever, they've normally got agency. They're normally, like, kind of morally kind of, well-meaning. They're kind at heart. Or they say something interesting, that they write poetry or something. They have little traits that are, encourage some sort of kind of interesting character thing. In this, she just sort of kind of stands around, sort of lists from scene to scene, and is just kind of like, yeah, Hi guys. Oh my god. Cool.
Oh, fuck it hell. I guess
So
if she had any discernible character traits, though, that would run the risk of at least a single audience member suddenly not being able to identify completely with her. So she has to have zero character traits in order to make sure.
And it is.
Oh.
It is, like, I did find it quite funny, like, how much of a kink, like, getting bitten by a vampire becomes in this film. And, how it's some sort of kind of weird turn on.
I guess it is sort of, like, classically sort of a very sexual thing, isn't it? Sort of the vampire is a very sort of sexual beast. Sort of the sucking on the neck is a very... Ooh. It's basically like a hickey, but for monsters. A monster hickey.
But I've got to tell you this story. It was quite funny because I was watching Twilight, right? Yeah. And I didn't really want to watch it, and I didn't want anyone to know that I was watching it. So I was just kind of like hiding in my room on the sort of low volume, sort of watching it, making sure nobody was seeing my screen or anything like that. And it gets to a bit, I think, where Edward's, like, taking Bella through the trees, and, like, loads of, like, music swelters, and it's quite generic classical music.
Yeah.
It's really generic music. It's not like a well-known soundtrack or anything. And it plays at a little bit of a volume. And my brother-in-law just walks past, and he just sort of stops, and he just goes, "Are you watching Twilight?" And I just found it incredible this man who was older than me knew that I was watching Twilight from, like, a sample of a very generic song.
Clearly, he's a super fan.
Well, yeah, I mean, each their own, I suppose. It was fun. This is the thing. I'll say I'll be controversial here. I probably reckon it's more entertaining than the first Hunger Games. And probably better than the first Hunger Games.
Ooh, interesting.
Oh, actually, no, I don't know if I can.
Interesting.
I don't know if I agree with that.
Oh.
It's probably better shot than the first Hunger Games.
Do they, at any point in the film, have a tripod and have, like, a steady shot? In Twilight?
Yes.
It's better then. It's better shot, at least.
Well, yeah, it's better. No, I think the dialogue's probably worse. The dialogue's probably worse. Yeah. The acting's probably worse. I don't know. But I think we would have more... If we were to, like, sit down with a couple of drinks, we would have more fun watching this than watching the first Hunger Games film.
It's the classic curve,
because we did do that, and we didn't have a good time getting drunk watching the first Hunger Games.
Oh, yeah. No. It's a classic curve, isn't it? Of, like, you know, you have great films, and then you have, like, on the other end of the scale, terrible films, but they're so bad they're entertaining to watch when you're drunk. And in the middle, you've got they're okay, I guess. And they're, in a way, I think the worst films of all, because they're not entertaining drunk or sober. They're just sort of...
I think that Hunger Games was just a sort of a badly shot film.
Yeah.
The second one was good. I enjoyed the second one.
The second one was good. The third one was great.
So Edward Cullen, let's go through his powers.
Yes. Now, he sparkles in sunlight.
He's handsome. He does sparkle in sunlight, like diamonds.
Now, in that scene, is it meant to be a case of him, like, going to Bella, "Oh, I'm a monster, Bella. You don't want anything to do with me." So his solution to this is to, like, rip his shirt off and show off his sparkling abs in the sunlight.
Oh, that's the thing. Like, this is the thing I actually liked about Twilight. I actually thought the concept and the sort of look of it were really solid. And I think it's really interesting. And again, like... The most interesting conflict I think you can have is girl falls in love with vampire. Vampire is, you know, there's the conflict that, you know, they love each other, but also he could eat her at any minute. And, you know, that's where there's a big conflict. And, like, she has to be engulfed into a family that could eat her. And there's this sort of danger that falling in love with him is very dangerous and could lead to her death. And I think there's actually quite an interesting conflict going on there. But it's almost like the writers sort of kind of go, really interesting conflict. Probably conflict that sort of sets up 5 films. We wouldn't really know how to work around that conflict. So let's just get rid of the conflict by making them all vegetarians. to remove any
geez.
sort of sense of kind of... And they do, they have this thing like, oh, they can smell her occasionally, or if she bleeds, they're like, ooh, But, I feel like if you want to have a really interesting conflict, fall in love with someone who might kill you works.
I fear it...
but they sort of remove it.
Yeah, I fear it sort of
too interesting.
The borders of basically being an allegory for abusive relationships. So you've got to be really careful how you handle that conflict. I feel because you don't want to Yeah. I mean, it is fiction, yes, but you also it's very risky of like romanticizing the sort of abusive relationship dynamic. The whole he's a monster, but he's so sexy, so it's okay. Well,
I guess you could do it.
It's juicy to watch, but it's risky because of that sort of factor.
I guess to sort of build upon it and to sort of build outside of it, because I do think it's the most interesting conflict. It's also this notion that she has to fall in love with someone who is essentially a murderer.
Yeah,
and it's this idea. I don't know. It's this sort of conflict of sort of you love this person, but at the same time you understand that they are a monster. They are this is the thing. It's a really interesting conflict. Oh, what if you fall in love with a monster? But throughout the film, even though the characters are like, you can't love me, I'm a monster, they're not, because they're like vegetarians and they don't kill people. So immediately, all of that is sort of kind of diluted significantly. So there's an interesting conflict there that they just sort of bypass because I feel that they don't really know how to do it, and such and such. Anyway,
Buffy and Spike did it better. Buffy and Spike did it better. Hashtags Buffy.
Yeah, until later seasons, yes. So he's cold, he's handsome, he sparkles, he's very fast, he's super fast. He's like the fastest vampire in the family.
Wow.
He can read people's minds, which is really interesting because he says he can do this, but I don't think he ever does. He does it in like one scene, in which everyone in the scene is talking about sex, ironically.
Of course.
And then he sort of never does it again. But
I don't think you need mind reading powers to work out teenagers are thinking about sex. It's fairly, you can probably guess that.
He's very animalistic. I think that, very animalistic.
Okay.
Super strong. And sort of the classic traits of a vampire, basically.
So does he have like this whole shape-shifting stuff as well?
No, I wouldn't say he can shapeshift, but he's super fast.
Now, the sunlight, it makes him sparkle, but does it actually hurt him?
Not in the first film.
Okay.
Which is the film I watched.
Yeah.
He seems to be... I guess he seems a little bit uncomfortable in it, but he doesn't seem like in agonising pain.
Okay.
Like that. It just seems to be like, this is it, really.
Do they sort of touch on any other vampire weaknesses, like sort of steaks and garlic and all that jazz?
They don't touch on steaks. They have to, I know they have to, remove their heads and burn them.
Oh, wow.
To kill them. That's how you kill them.
So he's going to be a challenge.
Rip them limb from limb. Yeah, actually, yeah. So in this, Edward Cullen essentially has to be, torn to shreds in order to die. And that's about it. I think his biggest strengths are going to be his super speed and his ability to read people's minds. That's going to make him a strong competitor.
Yeah, for sure. Interesting.
And he's good at baseball. He's a good fielder in baseball. That's another thing.
Vampire baseball.
Yeah, which is, it was an okay scene. It was fun, I suppose.
I wonder if they do a different sport in all the sequels. Vampire volleyball.
Volleyball. We'll have to find out. Shall we move on to our next character?
One final question. Why does Edward go back to high school? Because he's fairly reclusive, so he doesn't go there to socialise and pick victims.
Well,
he doesn't need to go to school.
sort of realised this as a plot hole because it's sort of it's this idea that I think they move from city to city to city to city, and then they sort of do a loop, and then eventually I think they wind up back at where they were, and they just sort of tour the US, and because he's permanently trapped as a 17-year-old, so he has to there's this idea that because he's like permanently trapped as a 17-year-old, he always has to enroll in school.
Yeah.
And he said there's a moment where like they think it's a sort of kind of like a family joke or something. But as you say, if he doesn't want to go to school, he could just get homeschooled, or they could just say he's homeschooled.
He's probably done the education system.
Around that issue.
Yeah. He's probably done the education system like
school
20 times by now, surely. Like, he doesn't need the education.
They say this in the film, and I can't remember what his response was, but Bella's just sort of like, isn't it like, doesn't it get boring that you essentially like do the same years, like, constantly, and like learn the same stuff over and over again? And I can't remember what he says, so forgive me, but I think he just sort of shrugs it off and just goes, yeah, funny.
If he's not a genius top of his class, then he must be a massive dumbass. Like, how many times do you need to learn the same shit?
Actually, no, he's quite smart, actually, because when they're in the science labs together, they're quite smart. He knows all the chemicals and shit.
Okay, fair enough.
So he's quite switched on. He just decides to go to school because, funny, innit? Rather than just saying that he's homeschooled and, like, cool. He also doesn't sleep. Which is interesting.
Relatable.
Next character.
Yes, who is next?
Another interesting and fierce competitor, Cedric Diggory from Harry Potter. Which I think is going to be quite interesting because he has a magic wand, and I know is it you who hasn't seen a lot of any of the Harry Potter films?
I've seen.
Which is surprising for someone your age.
I've seen the last one, definitely, and I've seen the first one with you guys. You showed me the first one.
Yeah,
and I've seen.
So essentially, when you saw the last one, you missed 7 movies of build-up.
I've watched it in German class. And then just watched the last one. Weirdly. They were like, yeah, we need to watch a film for the end of the term. Well, it was one of those lessons, and then everyone chose Harry Potter. So I was watching the last Harry Potter in German without having any of the build-up, which was an interesting experience.
Nice. Cool. So so Cedric Diggory's in the 4th one, and the 4th one alone. And
right.
I think he's quite important as a character because he sort of represents the sort of change from Harry Potter being sort of fun kids' book to having this a little bit darker element, because he is the first character who is killed in the Harry Potter series.
Okay.
Spoilers.
I guess he's not going to do well.
Well, no, well, yeah, because he's killed by... Well, he's not killed by Voldemort. He's killed by Voldemort's lackey.
Is that... hang on, I think I have memories here. Is this the one with all the Quidditch, and then at the end Harry's like sucked through a portal, and then Voldemort's there?
Yeah.
Oh, Harry. I think I might have seen this one, or at least
I can
parts
touch you.
Yeah. Because that's where he dies,
Harry goes...
That's where Cedric gets killed by Voldemort.
So Harry goes through a portal with Robert Pattinson's character, and they end up in a graveyard, and he's killed in the graveyard.
Ironic.
That, I think that's the kind of turning point of the sort of the series, because then it gets a little bit darker, and it's very sad. I remember that scene being very sad.
No, Cedric.
Because there's a bit like... You've got to understand the Harry Potter lore, I guess. But sort of like when he like fights Voldemort for like the first time, like all these like ghosts emerge from his wand, and like Cedric's ghost like comes out of his wand, and he's sort of like, it sounds so dumb, but it's actually quite like emotional. And he's just like, take my body, Harry, take my body back to my father. And it's like, oh my god. Yeah, it's really sad. And then like you've got that scene, I'm not sure if you've seen it, where like he goes back and it's just like everyone's cheering because they think Harry and Cedric have like won, but they don't realise he's dead. So everyone's like cheering and celebrating, and then like very slowly like people realise, and then Cedric's dad just sort of comes out of the audience and he's like, my boy, my boy. He sort of does a little bit of a There Will Be Blood. But it is very sad. But to move away from the sad scene where Cedric Diggory dies,
would it not have been
as
like,
a character?
Would it not have impacted more if Cedric had been in the films up to that one as well? Like, if that's a turning point, I feel it would have been sort of better if he'd been established in like the first one. So it was like, oh god, if killed off a recurring character.
Possibly, yeah. Yeah.
That's my Harry Potter.
He might be in the book. I don't know. I only read like the third book because the third film was my favourite, and therefore I read the third book. But he might. I don't know, because they are very well crafted books, and I wouldn't be surprised if like Cedric Diggory was in it from the start, but he was sort of like a background character who may have got like mentioned in a sentence in the first couple of books, and then like in the fourth one sort of became really popular.
I'm not sure, because like, you know, J.K. Rowling, obviously fuck J.K. Rowling, I think doesn't need to be said, but we'll say it anyway just in case. Fuck J.K. Rowling, transphobe. I think given how what's the word here, given her tendency to insert bullshit years after the fact, it's, you know, by the way, such and such wizards magic away their shit before they had toilets. Genuine thing she added. And, you know, by the way, you know, what else has she added? I'm not an expert, but I know she's added a bunch of bullshit. Like, a bunch of characters are suddenly gay, but they were never gay in the books. So it's, you're trying for representation here, but it's cheap because they're not actually there. Yeah. So I don't know. Maybe she does the same with Cedric. Oh, Cedric was in the book.
I know. I mean, you're absolutely right, and she does add stuff to the canon which is just like non-existent. But the book series is very well crafted, very well thought out series. Even if she does just change all the characters afterwards, for better or for worse. But yeah, essentially, if we go to his powers, he's very competent. So he's quite smart. He's quite switched on. He's like top. The thing is, he's a really popular character in the books. So he's like really popular. He's really handsome. He's really cool, but he's also like really humble, and you know, he's really nice, and he really like helps everyone out. So he's just an all-round great geezer, and he's a pretty good little magician. And my theory is, so, of course, in the Harry Potter books, there are, like, spells that can kill a person. Yes. The spell that kills him. And you sort of learn about that spell in a... It's really hard to explain. But essentially, all the characters learn about that spell in class. So they learn how to kill people in that book. So I think it's very safe to presume that Cedric Diggory knows how to kill people. Yeah. Do the killing spell. Which is going to make him pretty fucking powerful. Yeah.
Is that the older Avada Kedavra?
Yeah.
As Voldemort does it.
So you first learn about that spell in the fourth book. So presumably he learns about it and is maybe able to do it.
I'd imagine so. Plus, you know, how pointy is his wand? You know, a wooden object of that size, if it's particularly pointy, it could also be a stake, which could come in handy.
I see what you mean. I would say it's sort of it's like a small stake. I like in an interview he did with the Batman, I think he talked about like his role in Harry Potter, and he used to hold his wand like a gun. Yeah. Because he thought it was cool.
Yes. I saw that. I just love how much of a troll Arpats is. Like, you know, in order to...
Yeah, I sort of admire it. But it also makes him, like, make interesting choices in his films.
Yeah. It's like how people are like, you're going to bulk up for Batman? And he was like, no, I refuse. I refuse to bulk up for Batman just to piss off all of like the dude bros who are like, no, Batman's got to do fucking 24 push-ups every second in the film, or it's not Batman. I just love how yeah. So what sort of spells do we see Cedric do in particular? Are there any sort of favourites he's going to pull out?
He probably does old Expelliarmus, because that's sort of the spell that sort of like, it's sort of the equivalent, I guess, of a punch in the face. It's sort of like it pretty much it does it like discombobulates people. It like kind of sends them flying. It seems to hurt people a little bit, but it doesn't kill them. So that's probably the main one. But you can also kill people. Like, I think realistically, in a battle royale, it's plausible that Cedric Diggory just boshes out like 7 killing curses, kills everyone, and wins.
So
we'll try and be a bit more interesting than that, but that's probably what could feasibly happen.
We could be in trouble here. If he could just instantly kill everyone, then we're going to have to figure something out.
Well, I'm not sure it would work on Edward Cullen, so there we go.
That's true. But I think Bats can't go down that quickly. Bats has got to...
Well, let's hope he's a good runner.
Oh shit, I've got to run.
Fuck.
Where are my bat skates?
On to our next character.
Yes.
Ephraim Winslow from The Lighthouse.
Yes.
Now, you've probably seen The Lighthouse more recently than me, so you actually might be a bit more well-versed on this. He's pretty much a dude who goes crazy and starts, like, wanking off to mermaids.
Yeah.
If I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, he's very clearly very physically strong. So, he hauls big barrels around up and down the lighthouse stairs, and he does a lot of manual labour. So he's clearly a very strong dude. Now at the lighthouse, what do you think of the lighthouse? Because I thought it was fantastic. And I imagine you probably agree, but just thought I'd.
It was Robert Eggers who also did The Veitch. And I probably preferred The Witch, actually.
Okay.
No, I really enjoyed. I thought The Lighthouse was really good.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a really good film.
I did have to
really
put the
interesting, really unique. Yes, but in the case of the film, to sort of come to the defense of the film, because it's so like it's shot. I can't remember what the frame rate is.
4:3,
maybe, I don't know.
4:3, I think. Yeah.
It's shot. It's black and white. It sort of makes sense that they're talking in the very distinct accents that would have sort of been, I believe, would have been quite accurate. So I think sort of the fact that it's sort of inaudible, I actually feel in a very weird way, although you can't really understand, adds to the realism of what's being portrayed.
Yeah.
Because it's portrayed as something very kind of real, I guess.
Oh yeah, I totally get why they did it. It's just, it was funny because I was trying to I don't like having subtitles on normally because I get quite distracted. But I was like, I give up. I can't understand a word they're saying, so I put them on.
Hey, Willem Dafoe.
Literally, just garbled goblin noises coming out from Dafoe's mouth.
A little bit more. Sound a bit like Chris Rock, I feel.
Oh dear. But yeah.
So yeah, he's very strong. Do you remember what spoilers?
Yeah.
What he uses to kill Willem Dafoe's character with? Is it like a shovel?
It's an axe, I think, because Willem chases an axe earlier on, and I'm pretty sure it's the same axe that. Yeah, because Willem sticks in his shoulder, and he sort of pulls it out, and his arm seems to be fairly fine, and then he gets him with it. But
so we can give him an axe.
Yeah, we can give him an axe.
Yeah.
I find it interesting, actually, because obviously The Lighthouse, as a lot of A24 films are, there's a fair bit open to interpretation. And the interpretation I sort of agree with the most that I've seen is that it's basically a form of adaptation of some old Greek myths, Proteus and Prometheus, essentially. I don't know if you've heard this one, but Proteus is Willem Dafoe, who's sort of this all-knowing god who knows all the secrets. And Prometheus is the guy who stole fire from the gods to give it to mankind. And sort of the lighthouse represents Mount Olympus, basically. And the light at the top is the sort of fire which Robert Pattinson defiles to try and steal or have a look at. And the myth goes that Prometheus was punished by being left on a rock and having an eagle pick out his organs day after day, which, given the final scene of The Lighthouse, I think gives it, I can certainly see that reading.
Quite possibly. I know there's a play called The Lighthouse, and it's about like two lighthouse keepers who basically go mental.
Okay.
I don't know if it's like directly related or not.
Could be.
Yeah, so that's sort of my knowledge of the film. I think it would make a good play. Like, you can make that film into a play, I think.
Oh, yeah.
I reckon.
Yeah, I think he... I think he could keep all the sort of, like, hints at, like, Cthulhu and all that stuff going on.
Oh, yeah.
On stage. Yeah, it's weird, because I obviously see the tentacle, and and then, is dubious as to whether or not he's going mad, but then the final scene makes you go, something was clearly going on here.
Yeah. I think it's they both just go mental, as I think maybe a lot of people would. I don't know, I haven't researched it, but I imagine people would go mental.
Oh yeah, it's pretty grueling.
Being like stranded, rationing in a lighthouse by yourself with one other person, and the person you can't stand.
Yeah.
I think they're the biggest pile of shit ever. Yeah, no.
Jacking off to mermaids.
Anyway,
but yeah, so he's got an axe.
He's got an axe, and he's quite strong.
Yeah, he can take a beating because, like, he has the axe put through his shoulder and sort of pulls it out, and it's relatively fine. Like, as
That's
much
true.
as he is at that point in the film, anyway.
That's true. Next, we have probably your favourite character, Dan.
Ooh.
Neil from Tenet.
Oh, fucking hell. Oh, Jesus Christ. We've reached...
You're not a
the
fan of
point.
Tenet, are you? Well, I wasn't a fan of Tenet.
No, so here's the thing. As a Doctor Who fan, I'm used to technobabble and garbled nonsense and plots which are very convoluted. I'm a big fan of even the Stephen Moffat era, which gets a lot of complaints for being too complicated. However, Tenet, even I had no clue what the point of the whole temporal pincer movement was in the final act. They make a big deal of, we're going to win because it's a temporal pincer. And I was like, okay, but from what I'm seeing here, it's just an excuse to have fancy effects go back and forth. There's no real tactical advantage from what I can discern until the plot twist. But that's not part of the plan because it's a twist, which wasn't originally part of their plan. Yeah, and it goes so far up its own arse, it goes back out of his mouth, it goes back through his own arse again. It's so, There's we like character generally, and the main character is literally called the protagonist. He's so devoid of character.
I do think that's lazy. I do think that's a bit lazy.
John David
I
Washington's
don't think
doing
it's
his best.
nearly as smart as they.
No, it's not.
Suggest. I would. What else was I going to say? I do think my issue with Tenet really sort of resides at, like, I'm okay with a complicated film, and I like to believe I'm of at least average intelligence, if not higher.
Yeah.
And I watched Memento actually last night, sort of unironically preparing for it, and I got Memento sort of worked for me. I quite enjoyed Memento, and I do think I'm fine with a complicated plot, and Inception's quite complicated, and I really like Inception, but I feel you do have a little bit of a duty. If you want audiences to enjoy the films you're making, you do have a bit of a responsibility to make sure it is understandable what's going on. I feel it's sort of, and I've said this about, in other podcast about Star Wars, I feel a film should a lot of the time be able to stand alone. You shouldn't be able to have to read a book to kind of get wider context and better character understanding. You shouldn't have to read a fucking essay of how this actually works and how all this lines up. And I'm sure it adds up really smoothly, and I'm sure it all makes sense if I read a fucking essay about it. But I just found it way too complicated. For my liking. And it allowed for some really interesting action scenes. But even in those action scenes, I found it really tricky to keep up with actually what was happening. Yeah. Which is interesting, because an action scene is essentially just people punching each other. Yeah. So to make the act of two people punching each other hard to comprehend, I don't know. I do think it was tricky.
I don't
let's
think
talk
it
about
helps.
Neil.
I was going to say, I don't think it helps
And
that
character.
the audio mix of the film is awful. The music is way too loud and drowns out the dialogue in like half the scenes, so you sort of lose explanations. Like the heist, when they're explaining the heist, it's soundtrack, and you can't hear a word they're saying. And it's, oh, I guess they're doing some sort of heist here. Cool. You know, and yeah, and I think it typifies my issues with Nolan, where I think he's technically his films are always very fantastic, but he at times loses the heart, which I think is important to make you invested in all this brilliant technical filmmaking. Tenet sort of is the epitome of it, but I think it's there in other films, like, you know, at points in the Dark Knight trilogy, as fantastic as it is, I don't really care about his Bruce Wayne, because we touched on it earlier. You know, I've never really have much of an emotional connection to him, because we're never given. There's no heart there to, like, you know, make us invested in him. Which, you know, as much as I can appreciate the technical filmmaking, I need to be invested in the characters to really enjoy it. You know. Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah, I think that's true. I think there is emotional and like character weight does seem like it's not a priority within Nolan's work. I still think he's vastly interesting. I think Inception has a lot of heart, actually.
Oh yeah, it's in some
the
of his
ending of
films.
Inception I found quite emotional.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's interesting. I feel his best films are probably the ones which are the most emotional. I think Batman Begins gets a lot of. He's so underrated because of The Dark Knight. But I think there's a lot of heart. I think Bruce Wayne as a character has so much more heart and emotion in Batman Begins, and people might forget it, but it's just the little scenes where he's walking out of the hotel being an idiot, and then he like sees Rachel for the first time and like completely is like swamped, and it's just like immediately feels like he's a shit. You know, there's a lot of just, you know, when he like loses a fight as Batman for the first time and he's like crying, screaming for Alfred.
Yeah.
Is like, I think there's a lot of heart in Batman Begins, but in later films, I do think you're right. I do think, especially in Tenet, emotional weight takes a little bit of a back foot. I feel.
But I think that's why he needs to be paired with someone who, like, you know, because I think in the Dark Knight trilogy, I believe they were co-written by one of his brothers, or his only brother. I don't know how many brothers he's got. And I think that helps sort of with that emotional heart, because it is in some of his work, like you say, Inception, Batman Begins. So it's a shame that it's sort of lost more and more, particularly with Tenet. But, you know, Oppenheimer, I guess, will be the decider. Like, it'll either be a return to form or worse.
I think Cillian Murphy is a very emotional. I don't know. He's quite interesting because he plays characters who are quite still and stunted, but I don't know. He sells emotion very well. Like I feel with Cillian. I'm a big fan of Peaky Blinders and stuff, and I feel in stuff like Peaky Blinders, Cillian Murphy just sells emotion like through his eyes. It's really actually quite impressive. That like he can just like give a look, and you're just like, oh, okay, he feels like this, even though he's saying that.
Yeah. Do you think?
So hopefully that means it'll be good.
Talk about Cillian Murphy in The Dark Knight. Do you think that his the way he says Batman in the one of the scenes in Batman Begins informs how the cartoon Batman. At the same time, like, cause you know that cartoon where it goes the Batman.
I've only just like.
Yeah, there's a scene in where he goes, "Oh, who is it, boss?" And he goes, "It's the Batman." So
he goes, the Batman. He like takes a little bit of a break between Bat and Man. Quite possible. Yeah, Cillian Murphy's a great actor. So
he's fantastic.
I will not have any disrespect in his name.
No, he's great.
Neil from Tenet. What powers are we giving him? We'll give him a suit. We'll give him a gun. Can he fight people backwards?
I guess it's a matter of, is he inverted or is he normal way around? Well,
this is sort of what I don't understand about the film, and you clearly maybe understand it better than I do. Who decides what's inverted? How does he decide to go backwards? Do they press a button or something? I can't remember.
They have like those turnstile things, so it has to be a case of Well, he can't sort of do it on the whim, so he has to have one of those big turnstile things to invert himself. So I guess he's either inverted or not, but he can't have him switching back and forth unless he has a massive fucking turnstile on the battlefield somewhere.
I would. Now, this is a challenge for us, Dan.
Okay.
I think it would be quite interesting, but quite difficult if we can make him inverted in this. So we have to sort of like
fucking hell,
have him fight backwards throughout the entire fight.
Get the fucking flow charts out. Get the whiteboard out. Let's see if we can track this shit.
Which sort of means we have to sort of preempt. We've got to kind of predetermine what's going to happen with his character.
We have to know where he ends up, basically.
Sort of,
yeah.
Yeah, essentially, and work backwards.
Jesus. Okay, so he's inverted.
But I think it'd be fun to try that.
Yeah.
Anyway, pushing through. Next, another film you've seen, Dan.
Ooh.
Preston... Oh, I'm going to get this so wrong. Okay. Preston Tiergarten? From The Devil All the Time.
Oh, Jesus. Yeah. I actually forgot he was in this film, to be honest. I was so focused on Tom Holland and just how terrible my experience was that I forgot that he was in it, even though he's doing a pretty good job at it. Yeah, so you've seen it. So we can now compare notes.
Yes, I saw it.
We can compare notes.
We can compare notes. Oh, okay, this was fun. A live kind of like comparing of notes.
Yeah. So what did you think?
I remember not being terribly impressed. I didn't think it was awful, but I remember me being like, meh.
Yeah.
That was sort of underwhelming.
Yeah, exactly. It kind of falls into that Hunger Games territory in a way, although I wouldn't say maybe something.
It was like competent. Yeah, it was sort of like I actually had similar feeling. Actually, I don't think the Hunger Games was terribly competent. It was like a competently well-made film. You could tell it was from a novel because I think there was so much unnecessary narration.
Yeah.
There was a lot of narration that was sort of pointless, like, and you know, it is a tricky thing to balance, and it's something I'm trying to learn to balance, like narrating something that just immediately happens, or you know, having narration for something that you know is happening, so you actually don't need the narration. And I was like, okay, I know this is from a book because they're clearly using that narration wouldn't be there if they were starting from scratch.
Yeah,
that narration has clearly been taken from the book. But the thing is, with films, you don't need narration because you can see it.
Exactly.
So I found a lot of the narration sort of pointless. I thought the character, I thought there were some characters that were quite interesting. I kind of liked the killing couple who shot people or like pretend to shout. I thought that was interesting. I didn't really understand sort of why it was happening. I mean, I also think that. I don't want to be disrespectful to stuff because I know people work hard and I am trying to write something myself and I do find it very difficult. So it's criticism. It's criticism. I'm not like slating it. Well done, you wrote a book, and it's actually not too bad. But like thematically, I guess the whole kind of moral of the book is like, look at all these like God-fearing people. These really, like, it's essentially like these are religious people who don't sin. But look, we're all sinners. It's sort of like this thing that kind of like, in a world where everyone is religious, everyone is a sinner. And it's sort of like, I think that's sort of, and again, it's interesting because I'm trying to learn this stuff and I'm trying to avoid these mistakes. So if anything, this film has really helped me. But that's sort of all it says thematically. All it really does is go, look, these are religious people and they sin. It doesn't really say anything about why they sin, they may go, oh, the war, but, I don't know,
the war. But
there's not. That's sort of all the statement is. Is it just that's all what the thing's about? Religious people sin. That's it. But it's not really, that idea is not really explored. I wouldn't say it was explored. It was a concept that was explored. It's a concept that's there and very present and very heavy, but it's not really explored.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think my problem is like you sort of touched on, is that there are interesting bits, but there's so much shit around those interesting bits that I lose interest. Like, I wish there was more time given to the sort of serial killer couple, because there's a good dynamic there with her sort of wanting to break away and him sort of being fixed on it. There's a good dynamic to explore, but it never really gets much time other than like narration where you're like, okay, cool, but I want to play out.
it's like a 2.5 hour film at least.
Yeah.
It's a long film.
And there's just so much crap which it's not really, it doesn't really do much in the way of fleshing out characters beyond what you've already seen. A lot of the sort of panding you get in there, it's just stuff that fills it out, and I wish they just sort of streamlined it.
If anything, it feels like they struggled to adapt it. Like, they didn't adapt it well. I feel like they could have adapted it well, but they maybe kind of struggled, and they kept stuff that sort of wasn't necessary. And, I did like, there is an idea, spoiler alert, for The Devil All the Time. I do like the idea that this girl was, gonna kill herself, and then at the last minute she's just like, oh no, I don't want to kill myself. But then, accidentally slips and kills herself. And it's just this sort of beat in the film that, in the book, I can imagine, really working, and you can, really attribute a lot to that and really, explore that within writing.
Oh, it'd be so much, poetic imagery and stuff, I imagine.
Yeah, just exploring it as an idea. But I do, it's this thing that, nobody knows that she actually didn't want to kill herself.
Yeah.
And it's in the film, it's a sentence long. She's just like, oh, she hanged herself, but nobody will ever realise that she didn't want to. And then nothing, it sort of doesn't delve on. I imagine in the book there's probably a good couple of pages, or at least a semi-big paragraph that's dedicated to some sort of kind of interesting idea. But I thought it was an interesting idea.
Yeah.
I just didn't really think it served. It didn't do anything to the film. It didn't change the film.
That's just
it. And again, that gives me a sign of maybe a poor adaptation.
Mm.
Good idea, didn't really add to the film.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, for sure. I do wish, I don't know how you'd explore it more, but, give me seven, give me several £1,000, several £100,000, and, some time, and I'm sure I can think of something better than what they did. Yeah, it's just, there's
also,
so much good stuff surrounded by the crap, which is such a shame.
Tom Holland plot armor. Jesus.
Yeah, he's, because he fumbles with a gun, but yet somehow just is a sharpshooter at the same time.
Kills 4 people.
Yeah.
And I can believe a lot of them, but when he comes up again, spoiler. We're given the spoiler warning.
Yeah. But I was gonna
say, way he should have killed the police.
No.
Police dude.
No, the serial killer, I get it. He has to jump on him. He gets all surprises him. Yep. I get that. But yeah, the Sebastian Stan, no way should he have won that shootout. No. And yet
he does.
Yeah.
Anyway, Robert Pattinson's character in The Devil All the Time.
He's good.
Illusions, blaspheming the heart.
He's very good, but yeah, he's not particularly.
He goes. Well, that's the thing. He goes for it. That's what I like about it. I think in a lot of his roles, he goes for it, and I do respect that. I think it's much more interesting than not going for it and playing safe.
I like how he's praying like a bitch when he gets killed. Just on the floor.
Yeah. Please. So yeah, he's basically useless. The only power he has is Jesus.
Essentially.
Jesus.
I mean,
shagging young girls.
Can he? Yeah, he's quite manipulative. He's good at how he manipulates his power of Christ to manipulate people. So
but he doesn't manage to manipulate Tom Holland to the extent where he pops him in the head. So I wouldn't say he's some great Iago character.
It only really works on people who are God-fearing, and I don't think anyone else. Well, actually, Winslow
Edward Cullen isn't.
Yeah. Winslow is God-fearing.
Ephraim Winslow, maybe.
Yeah, because
he get the lighthouse.
He's explicitly I'm a God-fearing man, sir, or whatever his accent is. Mm-hmm. So maybe him.
Maybe, yeah. Okay. But yeah, he's a man. He's a priest. I'm a son of a preacher man. He wears a nice suit. He has no weapons. He has a Bible. He has Jesus. That's all he has.
Power of the Lord.
Power of the Lord. It's a powerful weapon. Moving on.
Yes.
Constantine Connie Nikas in the film Good Time, which is your quintessential indie film. It's probably it was sort of like, it's not his most famous film, but it was sort of like his most famous, like, it was so like highly reviewed, and I remember like a lot of people talking about it and a lot of people going on about it, and yeah, it's good. It's the one film I watched which I was like, yep, good film.
You have to jog my memory a little bit, because I watched it way back at the start of the first lockdown. It was the one and only film I watched on the whole Netflix party thing. I Netflix partied it.
Oh, nice.
And yeah, it was good. I remember thinking it was pretty good, but I don't remember. I remember bits like. See, I have to test how accurate my memory is, but I remember. So it's him and his brother, isn't it? It starts out as. And then they're on the wrong side of the law, and then something goes down where they end up in a hospital, and he tries to get his brother out, and he thinks he does, but the face is all bandaged up. And then you get the reveal later on, spoilers I guess, by the way, for good time, you get the reveal that it's not his brother, but he's now stuck miles out with this random dude, and they've got to try and rescue his brother, and then some other shit goes down, and it ends is it like a fairground thing it ends in? It is, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, it's towards the end.
Yeah, so
it's towards the end.
That's about the extent of my memory, other than him being blonde and pretty good in it.
So yeah, so basically his brother, and again I watched it a week ago and I've forgotten a lot, which just shows how much of a goldfish brain I've got. So yeah, his brother has some form of like severe learning difficulty, but they pair up regardless to rob a bank, and trying to evade the police after robbing the bank. His disabled brother gets caught, but he's also severely injured, so he's taken to hospital. And the whole film is basically Robert Pattinson trying to get his brother out of custody and therefore get him out of the hospital.
Yeah. And
it starts with that. He tries to get his brother out of hospital, but it sort of all goes wrong, and it sort of divulges into a million things. He picks up the wrong person. There's like drug deals. You know, he tries to enlist people to help him, but he can't, and it just kind of all kind of his plan just goes to shit, basically.
Yeah.
But I do think it's Robert Pattinson's best performance, and I would recommend watching it if you haven't already, even though we've probably basically spoiled. Well, we haven't spoiled a lot about it, but we've spoiled some stuff. But yeah, it's good. In terms of powers,
yes,
I think he's quite street smart.
Yeah, he's fairly good at like thinking on his feet and like being scrappy, isn't he?
Yeah, he can think on his feet. He's street smart. We can give him a bottle of acid, which, like, acid is in the drug, which I could do something. Probably will do very little. Again, could target Ephraim Winslow as like the major raging alcoholic druggie.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's sort of about it. But it's a very good film, and it's probably his best performance until The Batman, because The Batman's going to be like the best film ever.
Oh yeah.
Ever.
Oh yeah. Greatest film of all time. Number one on IMDb.
Yeah. Second to No Way Home.
Of course. That's like a next level masterpiece. It's beyond cinema, you know. It's
Anyway, let's move on quite quickly.
Yes.
Next is, and again, there's not really much to say about this character. The Dauphin, son of the King of France in The King.
Ooh.
Which
I have no idea about this film, so.
Right, yeah. So it was, I don't want to say it's popular, but it's Henry V, I believe, basically, the Shakespeare. It's the story of the newly crowned King Henry going to France and fighting in a battle. King Henry's main adversary in this is Robert Pattinson's character, who's, I think, the son of the King of France, King Louis, I think.
That sounds right, yeah.
And yeah, essentially it's a film where knights go into battle. England fight France in battle.
Okay.
It's interesting that Timothée Chalamet plays Henry.
Ooh.
Because he's French. Ooh. And it's quite interesting that Robert Pattinson plays the French villain, when he's English.
Yeah, that is
That's
interesting.
quite interesting.
I wonder if that was
also-
a choice or an accident.
Yeah, it's not the most fun film ever. I don't particularly enjoy it. It was. I guess it was different. So he's got praise that it was a little bit unique. It was a bit different. It tried to be, and again with Robert Pattinson, it's a very peculiar performance, but he goes all out in it, and he tries to be very kind of odd and strange. That's it. It's sort of like it's a bit odd and strange, which has to be commended in some sense. But I didn't think, for me, it didn't work a lot of the film, a lot of the time.
Okay.
I don't know if I don't know, because I know Tom Hiddleston played Henry. I know Kenneth Branagh played Henry. Timothée Chalamet looked very sort of, I don't want to be mean, let's say he doesn't look like a big bulk soldier.
He's got the
I'm
whole...
not saying that Henry necessarily was,
Yeah.
but he's very skinny and he's very small.
I would say it's probably historically accurate. I imagine a lot of kings around that time were sort of fairly young and
I mean, quite
unbuilt.
possibly, yeah.
But Timothée Chalamet's got the whole waifish twink thing going on at the moment, which is a fairly popular trend. Sort of thin, wispy white guys with curly hair. It's me. It's perfect. I'll be the next waifish twink for Hollywood.
Yeah. What can I say? There's battle scenes where... But it's interesting because I don't know how to explain it. The battle scenes are sort of shot... Well, I mean, the battles aren't like kind of knights like clashing swords and having these great sword fights. It's more like a sort of brawl where people like rugby tackling each other and just sort of wrestling each other in the mud.
Okay.
It's an interesting one. I'd advise watching it and gauging your own opinion. I wasn't... As someone who studied Shakespeare and studied Henry V, ironically, I don't know, I wasn't tremendously invested in it, but don't let my opinion sway you. I'll be judge for yourself. The only thing, spoilers, I will say, which I'm not sure I did enjoy of the climax, but I thought it was quite an interesting subversion, and I don't know, there may be some element of truth to it. I'm not sure. So basically, it gets to the bit where the final battle is a big battle.
Yeah.
And Timothée Chalamet and Robert Pattinson like meet in the middle, and the crowd sort of separates out. And sort of, let's talk about Robert Pattinson's character. He's quite kind of foolish, he's quite kind of silly, he's quite kind of, like, he's strategic and stuff, and, he talks about, blood and threatens and violence, but he's also, like, a little bit, he messes about, he's a bit of a joker, he's a bit of a kind of numbskull. That's sort of the context of it. So, they meet in a battlefield, everyone separates out and stops fighting and watches, and Robert Pattinson puts down his armour, brandishes his sword, Timothée Chalamet brandishes his sword, and they're about to go into battle. Robert Pattinson takes one step in the mud and slips over, and he tries to get back up, slips over again, and then it's like a good minute long of him just like trying to stand up, but he can't, and like
for fuck's sake.
he's in this like full knight uniform and he just can't get up. And Timothée Chalamet and everyone's just watching him, like, okay. And then Timothée Chalamet just nods, and then everyone near Robert Pattinson just runs up and stabs him.
Yeah, at that point, just go home. Just call it a day.
Really shit fighter. Really shit fight. Like, falls over. He's so bad. Like, he takes one step and just collapses.
And takes off
which
his
is
armor
why I thought he'd be a good addition.
And takes off his armour first, you said, as well, which is... dipshit.
No, sorry, you missaid. He's got armour on. He's got all his knight's armour on. He's like fully like dressed up in like shiny knight armour.
Okay, fair enough.
And it's like because like his iron boots have no grip or something, and he's in the mud, he just sort of slips over and can't stand up. I guess it's this idea that because he talks all shit. He's all talk and sort of nothing else. And when it gets down to actual fighting, he's shit and then just dies. So yeah, that's Robert's role in The King.
I can see why you picked him. Yeah, he's going to be
He's going to be fun, and he's a joker. He talks about he got the big balls and the tiny cock. That's what he says in the film. That's a line in the film, in sort of that manner.
Nice. Nice.
Let's get on to the wild card.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And genuinely, I was really stumped for the wild card because I was actually going to do a sort of first and just sort of like discuss what wild card we could use, because he's been in lots of famous roles, and I was just like, well, especially with the Batman, it's sort of like, well, you know, do we bring the Riddler into it? But we don't really know what the Riddler's going to be like. Would he be any good in a battle royale? Probably not.
Joaquin's Joker, put him in here. Why not?
Yeah, I thought about
destroyed.
Yeah, I was like, a controversial one. I was just like, well, do we bring back a former competitor in Bane and have Bane fight again? That could have been interesting. But as being suggested, why not bring back the oldest rivalry of the last 14 years? Is it Edward or Jacob, Dan?
Oh, hashtag.
And bring back Jacob from Twilight.
Team, get me out of here.
And decide who wins that argument. Does Team Edward win or does Team Jacob win?
Okay.
And Jacob's an interesting character from Twilight, because in the first film he sort of does nothing. He sort of stands around. He's got really long hair, and no offense to Taylor Lautner, it's not his best look. He doesn't look tremendously attractive because he's just got long flowing hair, hides his face a lot of the time. He doesn't have any dialogue, and all the dialogue's bad. But what we find out later, when he cuts off his hair and gets like ripped. Actually, apparently, I heard that like they were going to recast him as well, because they didn't think, because he was so. I think he might have been like 16 at the time or something like that.
Oh, Jesus Christ!
And he was really young at the time. Yeah. And the people were like, "Oh, so when he becomes a werewolf boy, he needs to be ripped. We don't really know if you can do that." And he was like, no, I'll do it. And he got like super like shredded.
Oh wow, fair play.
Yeah, no, fair fucks. And so yeah, in later films he becomes like Hot Jacob.
When he's legally
and he's a werewolf boy. And werewolves in Twilight, because I've seen a few clips, are sort of just like big bears, really. Big giant wolves. They're not like werewolves, like when they're on their hind legs and stuff.
They kind of
sort of like big wolves.
Yeah, they kind of sort of set a trend, don't they? Where werewolves are more just like big dogs and people.
Yeah,
and not really the hybrids. Because, you know, Wolf Blood does it, which was a show that from my sort of, late childhood. Which
that I was in.
You were in Wolf Blood. Yeah.
I was in Wolf Blood. I still can't find the episode. I might have been cut from it, but
with my expert Wolf Blood knowledge, it sounds like it's sort of later, series 4 or 5.
Yeah, it was a later series one.
That was a good show.
I played one of the Wolf. I never watched it, but I played one of the Wolf Bloods. Apparently, There's like, is there like a cafe or something?
Yeah,
that all the like Wolf Bloods go to. Yeah, I was in it. I was technically a werewolf.
Oh, wow.
Werewolf, guys.
That's like the last series, and that really narrows it down. That'll be the final series. I'll be able to track you down in one of the group scenes in a cafe. But, you know, it's probably a guilty pleasure, but I enjoyed Wolf Blood when I was a teen.
I think I was in it, so it was...
claim to
it's
fame.
Not like I can say anything.
Did you have the whole yellow contacts and the sort of black vein thing going on? Did they do that?
No, they didn't put any. No.
Oh, that's a shame.
Sadly not.
That's a shame.
Anyway, so yeah, werewolves in this, you kill them by breaking their necks, I think.
Oh, well.
Or just, kill them in any way a wolf can be killed.
Maybe
that did the trick.
But maybe our bats can call in Henry Cavill Superman, and he's great at breaking necks. The expert on them.
Well, in Twilight, a vampire does break a wolf's neck, but also a wolf eats a vampire, so it's quite evenly matched, really.
Okay.
Anyway, we've been talking for films for an hour and a half.
Yes, this is going to be our longest episode so far. Jesus.
Yeah. So, let's get into it. Where should this place be set?
Now.
Maybe in the Twilight Forest. Ooh.
Yeah, Twilight Forest.
Or outside the school that leads into the forest. So there's like an area of like school ground, but then there's also like the forest.
Yeah,
Not too far away.
that can be fun. It's it's a fairly sort of nice, the fairly neutral battleground where there's a big space and stuff. The only other alternative, I guess, would maybe be the Lighthouse Island. Sort of fight around the rock and sort of maybe they can get up to the lighthouse itself. But yeah, I think the Twilight Forest is. I
like Twilight Forest. People can climb trees.
Yeah.
It gives a heavy advantage to the Twilight people, but fuck it. Fuck it. We'll do it live.
I guess the Batcave, but we don't really know what the new Batcave looks like.
No, we don't really know what it's going to look like. Gotham City.
Yeah, Twilight
that
Forest.
One room where they find the body of that guy who's been duct taped.
Yes. Where else have we seen in the trailer? That rooftop which Bruce stands on and possibly fights Catwoman at one point on.
Yeah. Oh, we should have had Nirvana as a wild card. Oh well. Although maybe it's a bit lack of taste with Kurt Cobain.
Yeah.
Anyway,
perhaps.
So, the Twilight Forest / school area. The bell rings.
Ding,
bing,
ding.
bing, bing. And
Gunshot.
right.
Now,
where to first? How do we start this?
So
now, should we decide how Neil dies, or if Neil wins, and try and work back from this?
His defining trait is his death. So no, that's Cedric I'm thinking about. He's pretty much done for.
How shall Neil die?
Which one's Neil again?
Tenet guy.
Tenet guy, yes. I literally, God, how forgettable that film is. So, oh God, we need to track this out, don't we? Right. So he's already been killed.
So we'll work back from this. Who kills him? Let's decide that.
Here's the one thing we didn't discuss with Batman, I guess, which is a big factor. Mm-hmm. Batman, famously, part of his character, does not kill. So, how is he going to fare here?
It's a fight to the death. It's a fight to the death.
He can kill Edward Cullen because he's sort of a monster, so that he makes an exception for monsters like parademons. But is he going to have to? Oh my God! Even if he wins, he still loses because he's become a murderer.
Batman kills Neil. Batman just snaps Neil's neck.
I think if anyone is good at fighting someone who goes backwards in time, Batman would be the one to sort of figure it out and like a way to counter it in true detective style. It's that, or he just gets blasted by Cedric. One of those two.
So, maybe he gets beaten to a pulp, like in the trailer.
Yes.
As those sounds.
I was wondering what that was then. Okay, so yeah, Bruce beats him to a pulp.
Yeah, so that's where we start. So let's sort of rewind from that.
Oh, Jesus.
Say there's like a... So it goes into like a fight scene with Bruce Wayne.
Yeah.
Where...
So how does this work from Bruce's perspective? Oh my God.
Yeah. Tenet is so confusing.
Why did we do this? So I guess Batman is pulled by some Tenet force on top of Neil and finds his hands bloodied. It's like, what the fuck just happened?
So does Batman's rule get broken because he can't really control time?
Yeah, that's it. That's how he breaks his rules. At that point, it's like, fuck it, I may as well just kill everyone now. At this point,
just traumatized.
What have I done, Alfred?
So who's fighting in normal time? Does Batman fight in normal? No, Batman. They both fight in rewind time. But
the way it works in the film, I think they do fight in their normal direction. So Batman would have to fight forwards, and yet somehow he has to end up on top of the guy. Oh my God, this makes no sense.
So Neil's dead. He's been pulverized by Batman. Batman's on top of him. Then they immediately stand up and then start fighting.
Yeah, so Batman's punches are sort of, he's we start with Neil dead, and then we see Batman beating him to a pulp, and then we see the reverse of how Bruce got him onto the floor, probably some cool cape move, and then sweep the leg or something. So then they're back on their feet. Oh my god.
Scuffling. Neil's probably getting shots away because he's going back in time. This is discombobulating Batman.
Yeah.
Of course, these punches are sort of doing nothing.
Now,
He'll pull his pistol and shoot Batman's suit, but again, that does nothing.
But with inverted bullets, because the way the inverted bullets work, it has to travel back into the gun. So does that hit Bruce's back and then can't go back into the gun and then cause some sort of time explosion? Or
no, so Batman is over Neil, and he's got like bullet holes in it, not bullet holes, like dents in his armor. And then that rewinds into the fight scene, and then all of a sudden the bullets kind of fly out of Batman's armor into Neil's gun.
Yes, okay.
And they continue fighting, and then Neil, I guess, starts walking further and further back. Yeah. Until he's in his starting position, and that's it. So, in real time, Neil just sort of runs towards Batman, brandishes his gun, shoots him, and then starts throwing punches. Batman, discombobulated, manages to sweep the leg, and then beats him to a bloody pulp.
Yeah.
And that's the Tenet bit done.
Thank fuck. I'm so confused.
And Neil, I'm so confused. Alfred, I'm so confused.
Oh, God.
Cool, so Neil's dead.
Thank fuck.
I also like the idea that Preston from The Devil All the Time is like Ephraim Winslow's like charging towards him, and he's like, "Now hold on there, boy. The Lord does not want you to approach me in manner that would be delusional."
To which Ephraim responds,
I ain't no, because he's more American. He's not really that pirate. He's more just sort of American-y. He's sort of. I can't. I go Chris Rock again.
It's a weird. That's I can't really place his accent. It's all over the place. Isn't
it like an old Boston accent? I don't know. But essentially that Ephraim Winslow like charges towards him with the axe. He's probably the nearest towards him. But person's like, "Now hold on there, boy. That the Lord will smite you." And does sort of he has this sort of like control over Ephraim and can like send him into battle then?
Ooh. At what point from the lighthouse are we taking Ephraim? Because I think it depends on his mental state. Because if it's like midway through, midway through, I think he has control. But if it's sort of towards the end where he's gone full psycho, then I don't think anything. You don't
want to do it when he's full, or maybe you do to add a bit of fun to it, or maybe sort of midway. So he's sort of psycho enough.
Yeah.
He's not at the start where it's sort of boring. It's not at the end either. So let's say it's like from halfway through, he's jerking off to the mermaid statue. Very impressionable. Well, he's got the axe, so it is sort of later on into his madness. But let's say he's still corruptible for the fun of the pod.
Yeah, because Willem can manipulate him even at the end of the film to an extent.
Yeah,
so, he's impressionable. Yeah.
You are delusional, boy, and these delusions will be your end.
Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Lighthouse Keeper, Mr. Priest, rather.
Who does? Now look over there. That man clearly delusional. He is devil against. I mean, does he go to Batman again because he looks like an evil force?
Yeah, I think.
And he's just killed someone.
Yeah, I think the priest is like, oh shit, that's like a threat, and Ephraim can be like, it's the devil, it's Satan. And then goes in with the axe.
The devil is over there. I mean, I feel at this point he'd be like, holy shit, the devil. There wouldn't be any of this kind of Baptist shit.
I guess he was the devil all the time.
Hey. Looks like he was the devil. Looks into the camera all the time. So let's say Ephraim and Preston as the religious gang just charge Batman.
Yeah.
Ephraim swings his axe
Batman
into
blocks it with his
Batman.
gauntlet. He's got he's got the
Yeah.
little bat fins, and then just like breaks the axe out of his hand.
Yeah. And does he just do the Triller thing again?
Yeah.
Who are you, boy? I'm vengeance.
I think that's the likely outcome. Yeah.
Well, so Batman then beats Ephraim Winslow to a pulp.
Just pulverizes.
And who the
Winslow.
hell are you supposed to be? I'm vengeance.
Yeah. So I'll just adjust my volume there. So so Winslow is beaten to a pulp. But here's the thing: if it's a fight to the death, are they dead, or are they just pulverized to an extent where they can be dead but aren't actually dead?
Well, let's. Well, I was thinking he beats them to death. He's beaten both of them to a brutal, bloody mess. There's just raspberry jam where faces used to be.
Okay.
Now Preston sees this, and Preston's sort of a coward.
Yeah.
So would he run? Would he I'm
I
sure
think so.
he'd run from Batman.
He's scarp.
But is he going to just
I don't think he
run
even.
into danger?
I don't think he even charged much towards Batman. It was more of a case of he sent Winslow to do it, and then when Winslow got his ass beat, he was like, "Oh Lord!"
Does he run into any other sort of trouble?
Now, yeah. Meanwhile, whilst this has been going on, what have our other fighters been doing? Like Edward Cullen, he just sat in a tree, just sort of chilling.
Edward Cullen, I feel, would go into, but he's very, he's willing to fight.
So does he go straight for Jacob with that age-old rivalry?
Yes, quite possibly. Before that, however, I feel we've got Cedric Diggory with his magic wand.
Oh yes.
I feel the King. We've got the King and Constantine from Good Time. The King is being an idiot, maybe charging towards Cedric, possibly stumbling, falling, face planting into the shrubbery of the woods. Edwin Cullen fires... Not Edward Cullen. Cedric Diggory fires a nice Avada Kedavra.
Yeah, because I think, being an old-timey king, he's going to see a wand and be like, sorcerer! And view him as a threat.
Yes, yes.
So, yeah, I think it makes sense that he goes for Cedric and then, trips on his ass. And then, Cedric whips out the old Avada Kedavra.
Cool.
So, King's
What
dead.
do we think Connie from Good Time's doing?
Now,
Is he, running, gonna hide?
I think he sort of runs to assess a situation, sort of with his sort of scrappy street smarts. He's like, right, get out of here, work out the lay of the land, and then try something when I've got the edge. I think that's his play.
Okay. So he's gonna hide.
Yeah.
So Edward Cullen and Jacob, are they gonna fight? We're gonna solve this issue right now.
I think so. Yeah, it's gonna come. No interference, no bullshit. It's just got to come down to Team Edward versus Team Jacob. Perhaps the other competitors pause their fighting and they're like, "Hang on, we need to back our sides here." Form a little circle, chanting, "We love you, Jacob." Or, "Kick his ass, Edward."
Well, so everyone just stops fighting after murdering Batman. Are we doing that? Are we really?
I think it to give this fight the weight it's due. But I suppose Batman is a very focused fighter, so he's not going to be bothered by Team Edward versus Team Jacob.
Let's just say they're fighting in the forest.
Yeah.
Now, well, I would say I feel like Edward's smarter. And here's how I think things go.
Right.
I think Edward makes for the forest. I think Jacob, fit with rage, especially after putting his impression on Edward's daughter. That also happens.
Noncery, we love it. We don't.
Sort of, yeah. Jacob just chases Edward into the forest, not realising that the forest is going to give Edward such an extreme advantage because he can hide in trees, he can be more stealthy, and you know, a wolf can fare in the forest, but you know, as the famous fairy tale suggests. But this is really Edward's ground, and he's in trouble.
The colour seems to drain from the world as they enter this forest, almost as if it's being deliberately washed out for some edgy effect.
I would say the wolf sort of smells something very Edward-like, hiding behind a shrub, and then he lunges.
Oh, okay.
Grabs Connie from Good Time.
Oh,
thinking it's Edward.
Okay, yeah.
Tearing him to pieces.
Oh, damn. So he doesn't go for the werewolf turn then? He doesn't like try and turn him to a wolf or then recruit him?
No.
Okay, yeah. Just rips him apart.
Because, tears him to shreds, thinking it's Edward. As he does... The only thing Connie can do is just, like Leonardo DiCaprio in The Revenant, even though this doesn't happen in The Revenant, the only thing Connie can do is shove a bottle of acid into the werewolf's mouth. Getting him just like so off his nut to an almost dangerous extent that Connie is now dead and Jacob is now high on drugs.
Okay. Connie's dying words, he looks into the camera and goes, "This is not a good time," and then dies.
Yep, nice.
Of course. So we've got a high werewolf and Edward just doing his Edward thing, chilling in a tree.
Yeah.
Okay.
Is Edward going to pounce on Jacob, or is Jacob is so just off his nut on acid? He's just like he's just going mental. I think he's just like charging faster than he's ever gone before. He's just going after anything he sees.
Now, I don't know what effect acid normally has on a person, because I'm a good boy who doesn't touch such heinous things. I don't know exactly what effect this has had on Jacob, but does acid's like quite trippy, isn't it? I do believe. So is he sort of just tripping balls at the moment?
It's pretty bad. It doesn't help that both of us are sort of pussies when it comes to acid and drugs.
Yeah.
Let's bear with me. Hold it. What else is happening, Dan? What else is happening when I research the effects of acid?
Okay, so whilst this scenario is occurring, we've got Cedric, who's just slain the king. He's now, I guess, preparing to Avada Kedavra someone else. Neil's down. Winslow's down. Oh shit, the preacher's still making a run for it, isn't he?
Yeah, he's still running.
So
Batman chasing him.
Yeah, I think Batman, fires his grappling hook to around his legs to catch him, pulls him back, to deliver some brutal justice, and then maybe Cedric fires an Avada Kedavra. However, Batman has seen this happen already, and Batman, the pro that he is, just dodges instantly because he's Batman.
Oh. Batman dodges. So Batman dodges the Avada Kedavra blast, which is quite difficult, but he did avoid in the comics Darkseid's laser eyes or whatever. He did,
yes. And Darkseid's like, "You are the first mortal to have dodged my Omega beams." Grrr.
Omega beam, yeah, laser eyes, which is what they are. So I think he can dodge this.
Yeah. Now, the way he does it in the comics, he pulls Parademon into its path for the final dodge. So does he do the same thing with the Preacher? Does he pull the Preacher?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
Avada Kedavra is the Preacher inadvertently. It's difficult because I would say it's then Cedric Diggory versus Batman, Edward Cullen versus Jacob. Now, I have researched acid. Okay. Apparently, usually the first effects of the drug when taken by mouth are felt 30 to 45 minutes after taking it.
Okay.
So, sort of, we can assume that either nothing happens, or we can just say, fuck it, it affects werewolves differently.
Or maybe Edward just sits in the tree with a little watch, just waiting.
No, I think it happens immediately to Werewolf Boy, because Werewolf Boy biology is different.
Yeah.
And it's sort of in law, it sort of, adds with the kind of Twilight rewriting of just sort of anything to make sense for the plot. So he has hallucinations, distorted visual perception of shapes, / colours, altered sounds, anxiety and depression.
Oh, jeez.
Which, not fun. Flashbacks, a rapid heart rate, and dilated pupils.
Right. So we've possibly got a very depressed werewolf. Poor Jacob. I feel bad for him. That's not fun. If he suddenly had a flare of anxiety, that's not fun. Poor Jacob.
Yeah. Maybe he's repented. It's karma for his
werewolf sins. Yeah, maybe he's like
his loving of young girl.
I'm sorry for being a nonce and imprinting on a baby.
But that essentially means that Edward could just get the easy win here, or he goes off his head and just storms into battle against Cedric and Batman.
So I think he's if he's hallucinating, he's probably seeing monsters everywhere. He's lashing out all over the place. It's a life or death scenario. So Edward can try and go for him, but it's going to be a sort of like riding the bull sort of situation. It's going to be a case of he's got to
I see.
Wrestle him to
the ground. Well, maybe Edward wouldn't engage then. Maybe Edward would just allow the wolf to just be taken away, and maybe the wolf sees Batman and Cedric, who are sort of on his level and not high up hiding in the trees. So maybe he joins that battle. Yeah. That could be interesting.
Oh, if he's hallucinating, he sees a Batman. Maybe he just assumes that's Edward and goes for him.
Exactly. Oh, yeah. Oh my God, this has worked out amazing. So what we're saying is Jacob just spears Batman.
Yeah. So meanwhile,
and just starts biting at his armor.
Yeah, so meanwhile, whilst he's been tripping balls to lead into this, Batman has been trying to talk down Cedric from killing in a very sort of Batman's Forever kind of way, where he's not even Batman Forever.
I just think they're dodging each other's fire, because this is a fight to the death. I think both of them are just going to fight.
I like the idea that, in Batman Returns, where he's trying to talk down Catwoman from killing someone, and then it's it's not right. We can't kill. Even though Batman has literally just killed the Penguin and a bunch of goons and killed the Joker in the last film.
Preston in this.
Exactly. So, peak hypocritical Batman.
You can try to talk him down. So Batman's being speared by a wolf, is being gnawed at by the armour.
Yeah.
Cedric is just sort of watching. Now, Cedric is fighting to the death quite happily, but if he's sort of been somewhat talked down by the Batman, maybe he's just going to watch. He's not going to interfere. He's going to let death occur, but he's not going to get involved in it.
Okay, the old I don't have to save you trick. That
Yeah.
Okay, so he's sort of watching, sort of backing away slightly, sort of fearful about what his next actions are, leaving him vulnerable to an attack from Edward.
Yes, backing into Edward, who takes a meaty chunk out of his neck. Killing him.
So Cedric just dies on spot, just drained of his blood.
Yep. By Edward. And now Batman's distracted with the wolf. Edward's going to take his time enjoying sucking his blood, because they really get off on it.
Oh yeah,
in Twilight. So he's going to be slurping that bad boy for a couple of minutes.
Okay,
it's sort of like a shake or a Coke whilst watching the fight.
Dinner and a show.
Yeah. So I guess what we do is we do Jacob versus Batman. Winner fights Edward.
Okay. Yeah.
Or are we going to say Edward wants revenge from Jacob, so he's going to use Jacob as use Batman as the distraction of Jacob, and just come up behind Jacob and just snap his neck, snap his big wolf neck.
Now I think
either are plausible.
As Cedric dies, he utters the words, "Take my body to my father," and then dies.
Which sort of makes no sense in the context of this battle, but he does it anyway.
Exactly. Sticking faithfully to the books. So I think Batman's fighting Jacob. I think Batman, of course, pulls out his wolf repellent spray that, of course, is carrying. And then sort of, that like gets Jacob off him. And yeah, I think Edward maybe does seize. I mean, is Edward a sort to like seize an opportunity, or is he more honourable when it comes to fighting?
I feel he'd take a win.
Okay.
You'll go for the key because these are dangerous forces he's playing with. He wants them dead.
Yeah.
No messing around. He just wants them dead.
Okay.
So I feel maybe he sneaks up behind Jacob and
so yeah,
another animal dead.
Yeah, I can.
Which is a
buy
common
that.
theme of this podcast.
Maybe
So
like
wildcard
Jacob is like sort of he's so pent up with adrenaline. He puts a bit of a fight. They have a bit of a tussle on the ground. It's a bit homoerotic for the stands out there. You ship those two.
Oh yeah, for the fans. That one's for the fans.
and then
it's Team Edward.
yeah. Team Edward wins. Maybe
Also, I
Jacob...
never understand Team Edward and Jacob. It's clearly Edward. Like Edward's the main, essentially the main character.
Yeah.
I don't know. He's in the first one for the whole film. Jacob's in it for 5 minutes.
But
Edward's
is
the way more attractive one.
I mean,
He's
I guess
in a
by the end
relationship.
they're both toxic. But
He doesn't imprint on a child.
Yeah.
I don't understand who is Team Jacob. I don't think Team Jacob exists. I think it's always
Taylor
been Team
Lautner
Edward.
fans.
I'm Team Edward, I suppose.
Werewolf fans.
But it just seems like such a forced feud because there's just no interest in this wolf boy. He's just constantly getting cucked. He's constantly in Edward's shadow.
It's your classic sort of
It's like saying, are you
dodgy triangle.
Team Barcelona or are you Team Coventry? Well, unless you're from Coventry. Unless you're Taylor Lautner.
Unless you're a
I want
werewolf.
to watch Barcelona.
Yeah. Backing
Oh,
the...
true.
You should be Team Jacob, Max. As a wolf blood yourself, you should be backing Team Jacob.
Oh, I should be. Oh, well, I've defected. I'm Team Edward. So it's Batman and Edward.
Batman versus Batman.
Essentially, Batman versus a Batman. The Batman versus a Batman.
What is it
This is a
all come
tough
down to?
one. I want to look at a picture because I want to see how well armoured Robert Pattinson's Batman is.
It's quite
Because if he's covered all over, basically, does Edward have access to the neck?
I don't think he does. It's because he's heavily armoured all over, plus he's got the little collar thing around his neck on top of the cowl.
Oh, he does. He's got a big collar thing around his neck.
Yeah.
That's going to be really handy.
He has got his jaw, more exposed than most other Batman. He's got more of his jaw out, but I don't know if that really gives Edward much to work with. Suck on his bottom jaw or something. Suck on his cheek.
Just start making out. It's quite homoerotic.
Our bats making out with our bats.
Well, here's my logic.
Yeah.
I would think a vampire would be able to kill a human. On one hand. On the other hand,
it's Batman.
Robert Pattinson's neck is fully covered, and it's not just covered, it's very well, he's got a neck collar,
yeah.
His part of his cape is blocking it. That's going to be hard to get to, and Edward does kill people by biting their necks. Also, they're in a forest where there's lots of wood.
Yeah. Batman
is being stakes.
Observed that Edward is a vampire, so he's had the prep time, so he knows what to do.
I would say Batman. It's really tricky because I don't know. So let's say Batman runs to the forest in a means to sort of craft a stake.
Yeah, he does the
Edward's
old
going to be much
smoke
faster
trick to try and not disappear, but Edward catches him. Yeah.
Edward's going to basically throw him around the room like a rag doll.
Okay, so having a bit of a tussle, make it a bit exciting. Bruce is getting his ass handed to him.
Yeah,
now,
I think essentially Bruce gets his ass handed to him.
Yeah.
And it's just whilst he's getting his ass handed to him, he could probably defend himself close range with his punches and stuff.
Yeah, he's Krav Maga.
So Edward's going to pull at his helmet to get to expose his neck, but Batman's probably going to be proficient enough to kind of throw up blocks and block those shots.
Plus, the cowl is probably electrocuted, like it normally is, like as like a unmasking defense mechanism, where if you try to put it off, it like fries you. So maybe that comes into play when Edward's trying to unmask him.
Maybe. I think regardless whether it is or not, it's going to be very hard for Edward to get to it.
Yeah, there is another traditional Batman ability which would come in handy here, because Keaton did it and Bale did it, so I think it's and it's not like outlandish, so I think it's safe to say Pattinson could, which is his little sonar frequency he can use to summon and like control bats basically. Now Edward being a sort of vampire, sort of bat adjacent, would that frequency like have an effect on him? Not like control him,
I don't
but
know.
like
I don't know if we can use it. I don't know if we can use it because it's not confirmed. We don't know.
It's not, but I think it's I'd say it's a safe bet that if not in this film, in the next one he'll use it, because it's like multiple
I don't
Batman
think we can use it without. I don't think we can use it without the necessary evidence.
Oh, okay.
I mean, saying this, Batman's still in a position where he can't get bitten, and he's basically surrounded by stakes.
Okay, so it's coming down to pure like power of fists and wills. So
essentially, who do you think throws a better punch, Edward or the Batman? And you'd think Edward because he's a vampire, but Batman's got all that armor, and like Edward is still like fully a kid, and it feels like I don't know. I mean,
Batman has taken on
Maybe they don't
Superman.
hurt him, but they can stunt him.
Batman's taken on Superman in more than one continuity and won. So I think he knows how to like deal with like heavy hitters. Like he's probably the armor's probably doing. He's getting battered. Like he's getting a few broken ribs, but I think the armor's protecting him more or less. He's getting punched through trees.
To honour the new release, give Batman the win.
I think he should.
He just stakes Edward.
I think, Edward like punches him through a tree. Batman is sort of like almost rolling with the punches to try and like manipulate him. And then like once Bats has been pummeled into a tree, it sort of splinters. There's like wood shards everywhere, to which Batman can like subtly turn into a stake. Maybe he like plays the emotional play. Maybe he's knows how to play people. He's like, only I can save Bella. Joker's taken her, or something. And then Edward's like, what? And then he stakes him in that moment of confusion.
No prior knowledge. This is a rule we've established since podcast 1, which we've probably broken several times, to be honest. We're not very consistent.
I'm sure Edward is at some point during this battle pined about Bella, because he's just so in love with her, because she's just so perfect.
I need Bella.
Exactly.
I am Bella. No, you're not. Yes, I am. And then that's where they make out.
Of course. And then whilst they're making out, then Batman pulls the stake out and ruthlessly gets it.
I've got 2 ideas.
Okay.
I'll pitch two possible solutions. I feel because of the way the fight has turned out, I think it's fair to say that Batman gets his ass handed to him, but inevitably takes the win by staking Edward and then, sort of breaking his neck off and then setting him alight.
Yeah.
Or we could sort of make a bet, because we haven't seen the Batman yet.
Okay.
And by next week we would have. If in the film Batman uses some sort of sonar thing to summon bats, we give him the win.
Yeah.
And if not, Edward gets the win.
Ooh. So either he sonars him to like disorientate him and then he stakes him, or he just like pure combat gets the edge and stakes him.
Or in the combat, Edward's power and strength, which is there, tears off his cowl and sinks him.
But with the training, he's got the strength, but he doesn't have the raw training Bats has.
It's a tricky one.
I reckon Batman finds he's had enough time to observe Edward fighting from a distance to sort of know how to counter him. So I think he either sonars it, or in pure display of tacticalness, he sort of rolls with the punches, get hit into a tree.
Maybe when Edward's killing Jacob, he talks about Bella, and he can maybe try and monologues about Bella.
Yes, maybe he goads him with that knowledge. Like, he goads him about Bella, and then he sort of almost does a Logan, really, where he goads him so much, and then he dives out of the way, and then Edward charges, sort of blinded by his love, headfirst into a little stub sticking out of a tree, like the thing that killed Logan. Spoilers, sorry. And then it stakes himself on that stump, and then he snaps his neck
and sets it on fire.
Yeah.
With his woodland skills, with his scout's badge.
Of course. His Bat Scout badge.
So, Batman of the Batman is the winner.
Yes.
This is where we watch the film in a couple of days and, we see that he's terribly shit at fighting.
Just gets his ass handed to him by everyone.
Yeah. And he's killed by the Penguin or whatever.
Oh, God. It's where, in a surprise cameo, Morbius shows up and defeats him as a vampire. And everyone's like, oh, well, we have definitive proof a vampire would win. Oh, well. But if that happens, folks, if Morbius shows up and defeats Batman, we will reverse our verdict and give Edward the win. I'm confident in saying that won't happen, though.
That seems fair. Cool. So, Batman of the Batman is this week's Fightography champion. Wowie.
Wowie wow. Our Bat and Bats is the winner.
It's also, I think Batman did very well, considering he was mortal. He's probably been one of our best mortal fighters.
Yeah.
I think Jacob, as the wild card, he came in third. That might be the highest positioning a wild card has come in.
I think it might be, yeah. Strangely, yeah.
I feel Cedric was maybe a little bit underwhelming, considering he could very plausibly just kill everybody.
I think, yeah. I think he could have done better, but also, we can't have Cedric winning when his main trait is dying. His most notable character point is dying. He can't win.
Oh, it would be so poetic, though. It would be so poetic.
Yes, I guess the rest sort of fared about as much as I expected. I didn't exactly expect Winslow or the Preacher to come out near the top.
No. But yeah, no, that was interesting. That was an interesting fight.
Yeah.
Do we have anything from the Twitter?
Yes. So obviously it was a little while ago because of tech issues, but I have the results of the Tom Holland poll.
Lovely.
An interesting one. With 3 votes, the winner is Rihanna Tom Holland. Our top 4, as a reminder, was Spider-Man, Nathan Drake, Rihanna, and Jip the dog. And yeah, Spider-Man got the other vote, but Rihanna got 2-1. So apparently that's who people want to win. Which
cool.
tough. We decided, and they lost. Anything
Who did
in
win the Tom Holland one? Was it Spider-Man?
Yeah, because it turned into a reenactment of
So
the
what
end
you're
of
saying
Spider-Man
is in
1,
the Champion
2.
of Champions, we're going to get Spider-Man versus the Batman.
Oh, the showdown for the ages. For sure.
Better than Team Edward and Team Jacob.
Oh yeah, Team Peter versus Team Bruce. The little man versus the capitalist billionaire. It's all to play for.
The Batman is the winner of this week's Fightography.
Yes.
Thank you for listening.
Indeed. I'll put up a poll on... What day is it? I'll put up a poll on the Monday after this goes out live, so you've got a few days to listen to it. So you can let us know if you agree with our verdict. If you disagree, you can email in or comment or just vote on the poll. Twitter is jazz_lasagna. I always forget to tell people what it actually is. What should help? At jazz_lasagna, that's the Twitter. Max, you've got the email.
Yep, at jazzlasagna@gmail.com.
Yep.
I've been Max.
And I've been Dan.
And thank you for listening to Fightography.
In a bit, y'all. My worst sign off.
In a bit, y'all.